How the plague transformed Europe forever. Imagine a world where death stalks every street, where entire villages are silenced and the foundations of society crumble. This was Europe in the grip of the Black Death. The Black Death, a terrifying pandemic that swept through Europe in the mid-14th century, wasn't just a disease, it was a cataclysm. From 1347 to the 1350s, it unleashed a wave of devastation unlike anything seen before. This plague fundamentally reshaped Europe. It impacted demographics, economy, society, and religion. Join us as we explore how this dark chapter forged a new world from the ashes of the old. The culprit behind this devastation was Yersinia pestis, a bacterium transmitted by fleas living on rodents. This seemingly insignificant creature carried death across continents. The plague spread rapidly through trade routes and densely populated cities. Its symptoms were horrific: buboes, fever, and agonizing pain. Death often followed within days. Maps from the era vividly illustrate the plague's relentless march across Europe. Illustrations depict the gruesome symptoms, a stark reminder of the suffering endured. The Black Death decimated Europe's population. Estimates suggest that 30 to 60% of the population perished. This loss of life had profound social consequences. The sudden and drastic decline in the workforce created a severe labor shortage. Suddenly, peasants and laborers found themselves in a position of unprecedented power. With fewer workers available, they could demand higher wages and better working conditions. This newfound leverage challenged the very foundations of the feudal system. The rigid social hierarchy of feudalism began to crack under the pressure. The plague inadvertently sowed the seeds of social mobility. The English Peasants' Revolt of 1381 is a prime example of this shift. Fueled by resentment and a desire for greater freedom, peasants rose up against the ruling class. The initial impact of the Black Death on the European economy was devastating. Trade ground to a halt, and agricultural production plummeted. Fear and uncertainty gripped the land. However, in the long term, the plague created new economic opportunities. The scarcity of labor led to increased wages for those who survived. For many, the standard of living actually improved after the plague. They had more disposable income and greater access to resources. The types of goods and services demanded also shifted. With fewer people, there was less need for mass-produced items and more demand for specialized skills. New industries emerged to meet these changing needs. Skilled artisans and craftsmen thrived in this new economic landscape. Agricultural innovation became a necessity. Farmers sought new ways to increase productivity with a smaller workforce. The Black Death shook the foundations of religious belief. People questioned why a benevolent God would allow such suffering. The inability of the church to stop the plague led to a rise in religious skepticism. People began to search for alternative explanations for the disaster. The church's authority was further eroded by perceptions of corruption and greed. Many felt that the church had failed them in their time of need. The seeds of the Reformation, which would later challenge the Catholic Church's dominance, were sown during this period of religious upheaval. The plague also fostered a culture of fear and introspection. People became preoccupied with death and mortality. This preoccupation is reflected in the art and literature of the time. The danse macabre, or dance of death, became a popular motif, reminding people of the inevitability of death. The Black Death spurred the development of public health measures. People began to understand the importance of quarantine and sanitation. While their understanding of disease transmission was rudimentary, they made efforts to isolate the sick and clean up their surroundings. The plague forced people to confront mortality in new ways. They developed new rituals and practices for coping with death and grief. The Black Death was a watershed moment in European history. It marked the end of the medieval era and the beginning of a new age. The plague led to a more mobile workforce, the decline of feudalism, the emergence of new industries, and a shift in religious beliefs. The Black Death paved the way for a new, fundamentally different Europe. It was a Europe characterized by greater social mobility, economic opportunity, and intellectual ferment. The Black Death was a tragedy of immense proportions, but it also served as a catalyst for change. It forced Europeans to confront their mortality, question their beliefs, and build a new world from the ashes of the old. If you found this video informative, please like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical content. Let us know in the comments what other historical events you'd like us to cover. Your support helps us create more videos like this one.